Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Welcome to all. Welcome to those who cannot remember celebrating Christmas anywhere other than here at Good Sam. Welcome to those who entered this sacred space for the very first time this evening. Welcome to those who have celebrated in other places and in other communities in past years, but are here tonight. Welcome. Whatever your story and whatever your journey, welcome. We have been preparing for you, for this gathering, for us. We have been preparing for the celebration of the good news of great joy that the angel shares, that for all of us there is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is the Messiah, the Lord, born this day. We hear in the Christmas story that while Mary and Joseph were in Bethlehem, the time came for Mary to deliver. For those of us who have experienced or witnessed labor, we know there is a moment in which you are not in labor, and then a moment when the time comes when you are very much in labor. And the time for that transition from not in labor to in labor is not one that we get to choose. And the same was true of Mary. The time came for Mary to deliver. And we might imagine that the day before, Mary felt more tired than usual. Perhaps she even needed to nap during the day, her body knowing that it needed to conserve and build its energy. And then we may be thinking, nap? As she travels and journeys to Bethlehem? And it's here that we maybe need to expand our imagination around this story, because I think we can often condense the action to a shorter time frame than it may have been. Like Mary and Joseph arrived in Bethlehem, sought shelter, were told there was no room in the inn, and then Mary's contractions began as they were invited to take shelter with the animals, all in one fluid, uninterrupted moment. Maybe that was the case. But when we look back at that verse that tells us that the time came for Mary to deliver, we see that the phrase that begins that verse says, while they were there. While they were there. And maybe it's my own nesting heart, but I like to think that Mary and Joseph at least had a little time before the arrival of their babe. While they were there. Perhaps even a few nights to get used to the lowing of the cattle or the sheep shifting in their sleep. Just a moment. Some time for Mary to nap. So again, with this kind of expanded vision, we think about that day before the time came, and this young girl from Galilee wondering why her energy felt so low, why she didn't feel like she could go offer the woman of the house help in the preparations of the day's meals. She had perhaps done that on other days, gone up to help and to have some time of fellowship. But today she was moving slow, just needing rest. And then after that day of moving slow and rest, perhaps the next morning she woke up with that burst of energy. Maybe even before Joseph woke up, there she was awake, all of the animals fed. Perhaps she'd even gone into the home to prepare the bread for the day, wanting to do that for her hosts, but also because she was so hungry. After that day of rest, and now with this energy, she decided that she'd make some extra dough, perhaps put an extra loaf in the oven, and then consume that extra loaf before anyone else even started to move in their day. She needed it. And so it was then, while she was there, that the time came. That she felt the first little pull in her back and that tightness around her abdomen. The time came. She felt the waters dripping down her legs. It was time for her to deliver. And Mary had not chosen today. She certainly had not chosen these circumstances or this setting. She did not feel ready. But she remembered Gabriel's words, "For nothing will be impossible with God." The time came for Mary to deliver, and she gave birth and wrapped her son in bands of cloth and laid him in the manger, in the company of those lowing cattle and those baaing sheep. God present and revealed in creation, holiness come down to earth, good news of great joy for all the people. And as Mary held her newborn boy, there were shepherds in the fields, keeping watch over their flocks by night. Unlike Mary, these shepherds did not know they were expecting, at least not in the same way. They weren't waiting for waters to break and contractions to begin. But the shepherds were waiting. They were yearning and they were longing. And the shepherds did know something of King David. They knew they shared a vocation with him, this keeping the flock, walking the hills, watching for dangers. The shepherds knew David had also been a shepherd, and they knew the words of the Psalms that David had written as he too walked the hills and watched for the dangers. The songs of lament and the ones of joy, the songs of longing for creation to be made new. The shepherds also knew the words of the prophets, the promise of a great light coming into the world, a Savior with wondrous qualities who carried the promise of justice and of righteousness. The shepherds knew the Psalms and the words of the prophets. They prayed them, they sang them, and they did not know when they woke up that morning that the time had come. This night watch crew had perhaps had a slower morning as their sibling shepherds did the morning's tending and feeding. I'm not really sure how that change happened. Perhaps this night crew even slept in until noon and then shared their midday meal before going out into the fields, into the hills. Warm bread, olives, dates, and wine. And then hearing the notes from the shepherds who'd been on watch for the morning. It seemed the local pack of wolves had a new leader who had inspired the pack to push the limits of their boundaries, lurking and hovering ever closer to the flock. The night watch crew was encouraged to stay vigilant, to keep aware. The wolves were getting braver. So into the hills they went, following the sheep over the same rocky crags that they had traveled so many times, dirt and dust on their feet. They watched the sun set as they had, again, so many times. It was beautiful, but not extraordinary. And then they took their places around the flock, taking their night posts, daring the wolves to try and come close. A normal day, an expected evening, the long night watch ahead of them. And then the time came. All light, all glory, all promise. The angel and the multitude of the heavenly host illuminating the night with the good news of great joy. A Savior is born, a child, lying in a manger with the wondrous qualities promised by the prophets, the Prince of Peace. The time came for Mary to deliver, and God broke into the pattern of creation with disruptive wonder, with disruptive peace, with disruptive love and mercy, and with disruptive vulnerability. The shepherds hear the news, and then they journey to Bethlehem to see this thing that has taken place. And don't you just love that language, this thing that has taken place, even after the angel has given them every detail, that the Savior is born, that the sign they will find in Bethlehem will be a child wrapped in bands of cloth and lying in a manger. And all the shepherds can say is, let us go see this thing, this disruptive, holy thing that has taken place, this breaking into time. Let us go and see. And they do. And they come to Bethlehem and they find the Holy Family just as the angel said they would. The child lying in a manger. The cosmos shaper has come down to earth. And here Mary is in the manger, counting his fingers and his toes. Mary cradles the head of the divine that counts the very hairs on her own head. God, present in time and space, come to disrupt the world's brokenness and wage wars of peace and love and mercy, all as a child from the manger. Just this morning, we met in this same sacred space and we celebrated the fourth Sunday of Advent. We lit, just this morning, the fourth candle of the Advent wreath, and we read the gospel story of Gabriel announcing to Mary that she would bear a son and name him Jesus. Just this morning. And then we went about our day, maybe wondering with Mary, how can this be? And when will this be? And what will this thing, this holy disruption, look like? And here we are in the evening, into the night, and the time is come. Not of our choosing, not when we expect it. The good news of great joy is born. And the mystery and hope and truth of this good news will continue to unfold, will continue to be born into the world and in us. We will, like Mary, be surprised by the birth pangs, and we will, like the shepherds, be surprised by the message from the angels and by the multitude of the heavenly host, breaking into our brokenness, breaking into our weary world. Just this morning, everything was different. But now, the cosmos shaper has come down to earth. Mary is counting his fingers and toes.